of you. And everybody signed up that wanted to sign up. And without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Marion Cohen. Marion, some of you I'm sure know Marion from over the years. She is a fantastic poet. I've heard her read several times over like the years in and out of different series. And you know, I was sort of surprised kind of reading your book. I know I've heard you read a lot, but the math poems sort of always stand out as like your thing. But her topics really kind of cover a wide range of things. And she teaches at Arcadia. She's published, what was this number? 27 books, including poetry and prose. And so it is a real delight to have her here. Thank you for coming, Marion.
Hello again, everybody. Some of you have heard me read the following poem, but I want to read it again because it sort of goes a little bit with the second poem I'm going to read. But this poem is called Daughter of Culture, and it's one of the first poems I ever wrote. That would make it close to 40 years ago. And in particular, it's one of the first good poems. I hope, I assume it's good. And both of the poems, this one and the one I'm going to read afterwards, connect old times with new times, childhood with the present, with adulthood. So, Daughter of Culture. Down all the long white hallways, and around all the slippery corners, and behind the layers of glass, and under the perfectly folded blankets, I lay weeping and screaming, oh mother, while you propped yourself up in bed to converse with a learned doctor. Not about me, mother, not about the meaning of baby me, but about the meaning of Balzac, Kafka, and Henry James. In the home you brought me to, my pictures got tacked onto bulletin boards, or dripped dry and wet on cellar walls, while Chagall floated over the kitchen table, and Van Gogh, 3 feet by 4, meditated over the well-dusted piano. You hushed my improvising and smiled resigned at my sonatinas. And whenever I arrived home, whatever I arrived home from, Beethoven from your instruments greeted me on the porch stairs long before you did. 20 years later, my poems flutter in your bottom drawers or suffocate in photograph albums, while Emily Dickinson poses on the front bookcase. Pablo Neruda rests thick and soft by your bedside, and Virginia Woolf stares into your bedroom, surrounded by wide mat and gold frame. Mother, oh mother, someday I swear I will get my poems between hardcovers. I will get introductions for my poems. I will get reviews for my poems, so that you will put me on your walls and shelves, so that you will put me where you eat and sleep, so that if ever I do crawl back into your womb, if ever you do get to give birth to me again, you will pack me in your suitcase and keep me by your bedside. So this time you and your learned doctor will watch and discuss me. Thank you. That is not the only reason I write. It is one reason. There are several. The other one I want to read is, it's called Dream of Decor. And it's a dream I actually had, and again, it connects childhood with adulthood in particular, recent adulthood. Dream of Decor. My parents didn't die after all. In fact, they've invited me over for dinner. As soon as they opened the door, I realized how happy they are to see me, because look how they've renovated their place in just my style. Some walls newly painted, others completely knocked out to make their first floor a loft. And their old, too comfy, purplish red couch replaced by Barcelona chairs, both of them plus ottoman. And now into their kitchen, where on the flat-top stove steams not an old favorite, chicken soup, but a new favorite, vegetarian lemongrass. And on the white pedestal table, surrounded by white pedestal chairs, oval Japanese design plate of Vietnamese green papaya salad, topped with ample, finely chopped peanuts and authentic sauce. Before eating, though, I need to excuse myself. Not to the bathroom, but the attic. I need to check out the attic. Is the chest of dress-up clothes still just at its beginning? Are there still as many boxes of old dried-up papers? Is the wood dark and low? Are the windows tiny and square? Yes, indeed, this is the correct attic, the unrenovated attic. This is still that house. I'm ready to go back downstairs. Now I can fumble, I can clap, how's that? Let's see, all right, this is a poem. This is actually a relatively early poem. Maybe I wrote it 30 years ago. It's called Anne Frank's Older Sister. When I first wrote it, I called it To Anne Frank's Older Sister, and I was writing it in the second person. And then I thought about, why is this in the second person? I'm often reading poems that are by well-known poets and otherwise in the second person. I'm always thinking, why is this in the second person? It doesn't seem to be a reason, and I thought that about my own poem. So I've changed it. It's in third person. Anne Frank's older sister. She was quieter, more studious, so they always thought she would be the one. But she kept her diary in a corner more sunken, or else she took it with her into the camps. So hers wasn't the one they found. Besides, Anne got the boy, the only boy in the house, and it's always easier to get a book published when it has some love interest. Yes, Anne got the boy. The man atheist always falls for the nun. The man revolutionary always falls for the boss's daughter. Robin Hood chose a lady of the court, and the tall boys dated the pixies, and the science whizzes went for the cheerleaders. Yes, monsters love humans instead of other monsters. And so Anne got the boy, and Anne got the book. Anne's secret was sweet, so they told it. Anne's message was faith, so they spread it. And she, the beautiful, sad older sister with the long, dark hair pulled back, and the story that was not bittersweet, but only bitter, she was left to putter at her mother's side. No, she wasn't the one, after all. She didn't even get that. And now I want to read my Valentine's Day poem. You notice that I'm dressed for Valentine's Day. This is the beginning. I was telling Autumn that this is Valentine's, kind of the beginning of Valentine's week, right? It's within a week of Valentine's Day, and I always dress up during the week. I get these things in thrift stores. So I have a number of, some of them are pink and red, and some of them are not, you know. Anyway, here's my Valentine's Day poem. I especially picked for this reading, Valentine's Day. What page is it on? Page 17 of this book. This book is called Closer to Dawn, by the way, and it came out during the summer. So I have 3 books come out this year. I was lucky and plucky. Okay, an N of 1. Falling in love is a physical process, like pregnancy, like postpartum. It stays precious and private for a very long time. So I eat chocolates in bed, stare into the mirror, place my hands on my face, take baths instead of showers. This is a vital time, a rite of passage, to observe, to take note, to honor, and obey. Now I'd like to read from, this came out in March. It's called What I'm Wearing Today, and it's got pictures that my husband John took at the flea market. It's got a photo of a hat. What else? You know. And this is about the joys, angst, and some politics of thrift shopping. So that's the gamut, I think. Okay, and I guess most of you know that I'm a math person. That's my main passion, math. And yeah, I teach math there, TV, and so on. When I can't prove a theorem, I stop putting in time and get out into space and matter. Matter. The colors and flows of skirts and dresses, the perfect schlock of jackets and vests. Yes, time to graze in these fields of dreams. Theorems are pretty, but not always to be had. In the thrift store, anything pretty is to be had. And here's, along the same line, this poem towards the end of the book is called Anything I Want. At piano recitals, all the other little girls got to wear beautiful pastel organdy dresses with gathered waists. But my parents thought those kinds of dresses were junky and bourgeois. One year, though, they got them for us anyway. But Rosie's had embroidered flowers, and mine was just plain. I don't know why I didn't tell them I wanted flowers too. But now I can afford anything I see, and just like I can write anything I want, I can wear anything I want. Organdy, lace, flowers, birds, Girbeau, Ivan Grindel, Comme des Garçons. I tell them what I want, and they say yes. So if you know your high-end designers, that's what the last three things were, are. And sort of along those same lines, this is called pride. We might also call it obsession, but I called it pride. Not only should gays be out of the closet, clothes should be out of the closet. They should be hanging on doors, draped over chairs, sprawled across beds. Maybe they should even be thrown on floors. As for things we decide to keep in closets, because there isn't enough room out of closets, well, closet doors should be open. And actually, my closet doors are open. Some of them don't stay closed, and some of them are just open because they're open. All right, so some more poems from this Who's to Die. The cover art is my son, my youngest son, Devin, for most of my books, in particular the two latest. All right, this is called Sibling Nights. Some poetry journal was doing an anthology of sibling poems about siblings, so I don't remember whether I wrote this specifically for them or not. At any rate, they didn't publish it. They didn't take that home. But the others, some other journals did, and the book did. Sibling Nights. Everything was funnier in the middle of the night, so my sister and I would make a date, agree or decide on a good time, the middlest of the middle. And whoever woke up first would wake the other. Standing up, walking around, tiptoeing downstairs, all those things would be perfectly straightforward the next morning. But now they impaled us on hysterics. We cover our mouths and keep on tiptoeing, off the stairs and to the right, then another right and into the kitchen. Then quickly into the fridge, where we'd each stick out a thumb and pull out a plum. And the very idea of eating plums in the middle of the night thrust us into further hysterics. We couldn't stop until that voice from the other bedroom, "Go back to sleep, kids." And you never saw kids run so fast, never heard giggling so nervous and so silent. As we finally closed behind us our bedroom door, ran the length into each bed, and dared share not even one intimate sibling glance, lest ever louder hysterics grip us, and the voice from the downstairs bedroom begin to climb. These are poems these are two or three, depending on how many I decide to read. And Autumn, I don't know how much time I have. Do I have a particular amount of time?
We usually go for like 20 to 25 minutes, so.
So I'll choose 25.
Yeah, you're fine.
When I timed it was half an hour, but I will try to. Okay, so this is called Portrait of the Mathematician as a Young Woman. And we're talking about the young years, like age 15, 16, 17, so pretty young. I used to get excited whenever I discovered any equation. It didn't have to be a formula, theorem, lemma, counterexample. It didn't have to simplify, generalize, characterize, or best approximate, as long as it sported those cute little squiggles, as long as those squiggles trembled and sizzled, as long as it had squiggles, it looked like math, and if it looked like math, it was math. If I made up some math, any little math, that was enough truth. That was enough. My passion for math is different now from the way it was. It's just as strong. All right, ambivalence towards calculus. Who here has had calculus? You don't have to know calculus. Yes, I do. You don't, right? You don't have to know calculus.
Calculus had me.
Okay, well, you're going to sit and ask me to. Ambivalent towards calculus. I love the difference quotient. So these are all calculus terms, so you don't have to worry about that. I love the difference quotient. I love all quotients, and I love epsilon and lim and little arrows when they aren't vectors. But I don't know about slope or integrals, especially definite integrals. And when I love triangles is when they don't mean increment. But yes, I love difference quotient. But what about quotient difference? What about quotient log? When I learned calculus, what did I not learn? When I gained calculus, what did I lose? In general, I like some math more than others, like everybody else. This is called Math on the Train. Okay, in my book of poems about my passion for math, I wrote a poem called Math on the Bus. So when you get to when you talk and communicate with people who probably are not mathematicians, who knows, of course, right? Things can happen, things can happen. Math on the train. I was working on that associative arithmetic problem, testing out examples of counterexamples, so the page filled up with cute little pictures. A kid came over, skinny, green, mohawk. I have a calculator. He held it out to me. You're doing those calculations. You can borrow my calculator. Oh, I smiled. Thanks very much, but I'm not doing that kind of calculating. I wanted to take him up on his offer, but I wasn't doing what calculators do. Right. And I'd like to read, just in case anybody here has ever been a caregiver, anybody's involved or has to have a relative who's, yeah. So I was a caregiver big time for my first husband. He had MS. And so the first memoir, I have one copy left in my whole, in my house, besides that one, is called Dirty Details, the Days and Nights of a Well Spouse. And a well spouse is somebody who is the spouse of someone who is chronically unwell. So something that is not, doesn't mean there's no ending in sight or no ending period. So that's the first memoir, and then the sequel memoir is called Still the End, Memoir of a Nursing Home Wife. And these memoirs have been controversial. I'm not, I'd like to say a happy hooker, I wasn't a happy caregiver. I kept being in love for a while. Then dementia set in, especially that. And I rescued myself. I felt the need to rescue myself and my children, 4 children, young children, and my friends and my students and other people in my life. So anyway, this is called, the book is Still the End, and this paragraph that I'm reading goes like this. Well, it's about an article that I wrote for something called the Well Spouse newsletter. The article was called Sugar Coaters and Other Non-Solutions. So I listed a bunch of non-solutions, and so right now I'm reading to you about this one. I also cautioned against too much of the type of praise for caregivers that takes the form of the flattery that gets you nowhere. You're doing a wonderful job, keep it up. No thanks. Imagine telling a slave, you're so good at picking cotton, we're going to increase your hours. That did and does seem to be the spirit in which praise is often given caregivers. Support groups say, don't worry, we know you're doing your job well, you've made the right choice. Well, just because we made that choice when our spouse's illnesses were first diagnosed, doesn't mean we should continue to make that choice. The decision to be a caregiver is one that should be up for renewal. In fact, in an ideal world, social workers would help us reevaluate. Besides, how can we possibly know whether or not a particular caregiver is doing a good job when we haven't gone into her house, specifically her bathroom, to observe her? The other side of the coin is criticism of caregivers. What do people criticize the caregiver for? Almost never for not doing a good job. Complaining is what people criticize caregivers for. If they complain, many people call them selfish. My own word is self-ish. Possessing a self, being aware of and attending to that self and to how it can benefit other people's selves, the care receivers and others. It's just a short paragraph. Probably still the end. Right, and my latest book is called Truth and Beauty. It gets its title, well, from Ode to Grecian Urn, but also the course that I teach at Arcadia is something that I developed. It's called Truth and Beauty, Mathematics in Literature. It's what it sounds like. The students and I study and talk about and converse about literature, poetry, and short fiction, and the excerpts of Alice in Wonderland that have to do with math in some way. And students the questions are designed to encourage but not force students to share their lives and experiences, and they do. I don't think there's anyone yet who has not, who has declined to do that. So these occurred to me about 1.5 years ago that what goes on in the classroom is pretty poetic. So I decided to write they're really prose poems about some of the things that go on, the conversations that we have. So this poem, I called it The Night I Almost Didn't Grow Up, because the piece of literature that we were reading was a memoir by me, but I am part of the math poetry scene, part of the math literature scene, so I need to be, I need to have my students. And also there were questions I wanted to ask, not all of which I'll tell you right now. But one question I did ask was, again, the story, the memoir, short memoir, is called The Night I Almost Didn't Grow Up, because I almost didn't grow up. That one night when it was during my first week in college, I was feeling so homesick and so scared that I was thinking I'll never be able to do this, you know. So most of the little memoir talks about that, but then at the end I think, wait a minute, I'm here to do math. I was given a scholarship to do math. You know, people here know that I'm here to do math. They want me to be here to do math, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So math saved me. That's the main thing. That's the bottom line. So one of the questions I ask my students, which doesn't necessarily have to do a lot to do with math, is, so how was your first week of college? You know, did you cry? And yeah, students will admit that the ones who cried will admit that they cried. Anyway, so this poem is about one thing that one of the students said. I changed the name of the names of the students, and then my reaction that I shared with the students, and that's something I thought of later when I was writing the poems that continue the conversation. Okay. The night I almost didn't grow up. The hardest thing for Uma about the first week of college, they had them doing things right away. Orientation the second day. She wanted to just finish unpacking and be there in her new room. Like me after I had my first. I wanted to just lie there and think about how wonderful the birth was, how beautiful the baby was, how great I was. I wanted to live the exam and the life, but not the life part just yet, only the beginning, only the examining. But the very next morning, meaning 3 hours later, okay, mother, here's your baby. Want to hold your baby? Ready to start nursing your baby? The baby. Oh yes, the baby. And remember that poem we read a few weeks ago about dying and your life passing before your eyes? Well, can't your life pass before your eyes before you die? In order to just lie there and bask in our lives, do we have to permanently die? This poem is called, Sometimes I Think I'd Rather Count in This World Than Sing in the Next. That's a quote from one of the characters in the story that we read called An Old Arithmetician. The arithmetician says that she lives in the late, 19th century? Yeah. So, and she lives in some little village, and you'd think people would think she was weird because she loved numbers and math so much, but instead they loved her and honored her. Anyway, so she says part of how she feels about math, not quite the same way as I feel. She says, sometimes I think I'd rather count in this world than sing in the next. Well, I don't believe in the next, but okay. The old arithmetician, here's the poem. The old arithmetician counted leaves on trees. I count colors in a print fabric and scallops on a decorative dish. But our all-time class favorite is stairs, not stars, but stairs. Mostly stairs going up, not down. And some of us count other things that don't need to be counted. But we need to count them. We need to distinguish each from the one preceding and the ones following. We need to ensure that they're not all the same. Okay, I'm going to read a very quick one now. It's called Marta's Math Memoir. Some students chose to write a math memoir as their term paper. Into the dreaded pre-calc exam walked Marta, accompanied by a calculator, 2 pencils, and 3x3 note card with only formulas, no examples. The card was covered, no margins left, with the smallest, neatest formula she'd been able to muster. She used every square quarter inch of space. Still, there was some left for her to have written, "You can do it. You will do great." No matter what the rules were, she made room for that. Okay, and now I'm going to read, here come the anti-Trump poems. All right. Now this one, I mean, of course I've written many anti-Trump poems that are only about Trump, and this is an example. I have this book, it's actually forthcoming, it's called We Who Merely Know, and it's written by somebody who really has not yet been touched by atrocity. I've had a lot of life stuff, some of which you already know about, but people who just know about atrocities, we also suffer. Not as much, not in the same way. So I have poems about that. This one is called I Expect the Spanish Inquisition. You know, now, who is it who said no one expects this, was that Mel?
Monty Python.
Monty Python.
Oh, okay, yeah, Mel Brooks. I mean, no, was he, was,
No,
Monty
Monty
okay.
Python.
It does sound like a Mel Brooks game. Monty Python, okay, thank you. My husband, he knew that, he could tell you that. Monty Python fan, okay. So, I expect the Spanish Inquisition. I also expect the American Inquisition and another Holocaust. Why did it happen? Well, why not? Woody Allen said the real question is, why doesn't it happen more often? Maybe it will. I don't really think that Mr. T is like, you know, is Hitler. Maybe he's as bad as Hitler, you know. I don't think, I'm not, you know, coming from there. Unless I expect the Spanish. Pardon?
I said, that's what they said about Hitler.
That's what they said, you know, no one expects Hitler. Election night, all right, election night 2016, and I wrote this, you know, during the night. 5 a.m. I awakened relieved. That nightmare isn't real, but that other nightmare, the one on the TV, that one is. But no, they aren't the same nightmare, not yet. At the thrift store, for 10 cents a couple of weeks ago, I bought a greeting card that said on the cover, "Proud to be an American." It had a picture of the flag drawn by a 12-year-old. It was the most artistic picture of the flag I've ever seen. The card was blank on the inside, and I was glad of that, because I could give it to John as a gag, making the inside say, "Just kidding." At the polls, my friends behind the desk had waved, "Hi, Marion," and one of them had told me, "Your son was here earlier," and in a voice not much softer, I think he voted Republican. As I had walked through the curtain, I called out, "Don't judge parents by their children. We're all parents," I had added, "we know." And the women behind the desk all called back, "Yes." Well, of the 4 that my womb contributed to the world, 2 voted Clinton, 1 doesn't believe in voting, and the other, well, all told, the math says my womb contributed 1 Clinton vote, at least that. And the one who died, I don't know how she would have voted. Yeah, sure, my vote counted. Like the probability of winning the lottery, not very much. Back in 1969, an old man smiled at Mario in the backpack. "She could be president," he said. I don't even believe in presidents, but I still remember that. I'll keep on remembering that. Never in my life have I thought I don't have a country. Never in my life have I wanted a country, but now I have even less of a country than I did before. This is called First Trump Nightmare. Somehow, he and I are taking a walk. He's confiding in me, telling me that he killed a man, killed him because he didn't like him. I love being confided in, but this time I'm afraid rather than flattered. I just know that in a matter of minutes, his voice will turn sadistic, as it says. "Now, how will I know you won't tell anyone?" Yes, how will he know? And whom will he confide in next? But I actually think that the bottom line culprit in how bad society and this world can be, because of people, certain people, I think a lot of that has to do with education. I'm reading actually from this, and how we deal with children and with one another, local personal levels and also on institutional levels. I believe that as society is, children don't grow up secure, not only physically or financially, but also they don't necessarily grow up feeling they're okay, they're adequate. They might feel loved, but they don't necessarily mean that they feel they're adequate. 2 of my kids homeschooled, and I wanted to keep them out of school, and they wanted to stay out of school, so we did that for 8 years. And I wonder, why do teachers in college too, on college level too, why do teachers seem to believe that in order to succeed and to learn, we have to work hard? What's this working hard business? Students, I think, my students, I don't work them hard unless I feel unless I have reason to. And I think they learn a lot, you know, I know they do. Okay, anyway, so I've written a lot about that. I have a whole book about it on my site, called, what's it called? Oak Tag and Eyeballs. Thoughts on Children, Education, and Society. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, so here's just one poem that I wrote. This book is forthcoming, yes, from Dancy Drill Press, but it's called New Heights in Non-Structure. And So this is just one, again, prose poem from that collection. Don't read to your children, it's called. Or not necessarily, or not all the time, and not instead of just plain holding them. When a parent reads to a kid, her voice is different from her regular voice. It's more distant, more monotone. It sounds as though she weren't speaking to the kid, as though she's speaking to someone else. And suppose she's speaking in the voice of one of the characters in the story, and suppose that character is evil. Singing to a kid, same thing. Devin used to say, don't sing. The singing voice is a different pitch. Maybe it sounds like it's coming from another direction or another dimension. Teaching, too. The teaching voice is different pitch, different speed. Does a teacher teach children or subjects? Which does she love more? The teacher/child/subject matter triangle is not to be taken lightly. Maybe we should teach only when we don't know we're teaching. We think we're really talking, we're telling. We think we're really passing the time. I'm in the mood. I'm in the mood for this. I actually don't have that much more, so. For reading poems about one of the themes that emerged from Closer to Dying is fear of one's body. Fear of our bodies. So I have to make sure I get the right copy have these all grouped. Same book, different groupings. This poem is called My Body Is Not Myself. They're these feminist books, My Body's Ourselves. You know. My body is not myself. I am afraid of my body. I cower when I think what it can do. I beg my body, part by powerful part, teeth not to decay, throat not to grow an extra nerve, legs not to break. Even what is sometimes my special part, I beg it to not suddenly start burning. I also beg my brain to let me sleep at night. In general, I beg my body to be good, not do anything I wouldn't do, let well enough alone. And like any fearful being, I cater to my feared. I will do anything my feared wants, if I only knew what that was. Does my feared need to be kept dry, or just the opposite? Is salt good or bad for my feared? What about chocolate, and if so, milk or dark? In what position should I hold my feared? Which doctors does my feared need to see? Anything, anything. I'll do or not do anything. Only please my body, don't hurt me any more than you already have.
Oh, yeah.
So along those same lines, this is the most recent poem I wrote. I wrote it today. It's called, the first one was called My Body Is Not Myself. This is called Our Bodies Are Not Ourselves, for want of giving it a different title. Or that's just what came to be the title. I cannot stop my leg muscles from cramping. My hands cannot stop them either. Even pressed hard against moist heat, or leg warmers, or homeopathic medicine, those tiny muscles do what they damn please. Just like in certain sci-fi stories, the protagonist cannot stop her hands from strangling her neck. And then, of course, our guts. We don't even know what they do. No, we don't know our bodies. But our bodies know us. They know us well. Sadistically, tormentingly, powerfully well. And I'm going to end with poems about writing. I write lots of poems. Who here writes poems about writing? Who here doesn't write poems about writing? So this is going to end this reading. All right, this is called After a Whole Day Typing. I don't think in words, I think in letters. Each sails out of my head in some parabolic arc towards its correct key. Meanwhile, another has begun. The paths intertwine, wires and circuits, till the keyboard has become another brain. I'm slowly transferring my thinking to another brain. This is called Poem for a San Francisco Reading. So we were in San Francisco, and a friend of mine, I managed to get a San Francisco reading because a friend of mine, I had a friend who was in San Francisco. She arranged this reading. So I was preparing for the reading while on vacation, so a poem for a San Francisco reading. In camp, there was the family back home. In college, there was the boy back home. And here now, at this vacation reading, there are the poems back home. There are also plenty of poems right here. and I've just written some more. But I still want to read. I'm dying to read. I can't help thinking about the poems back home. And before I knew about writing, I think this is the last one I'm reading, let's see. Yeah, we'll make it good, right? Before I knew about writing, and I've written several poems about this phenomenon. Before I knew about writing, I still knew about thinking. When I had an interesting thought, I knew it in whatever language I knew. I carried my interesting thoughts all the way to age 11, when I learned about real writing, not only school compositions or cute rhyming birthday cards. I had steered my interesting thoughts safely to that shore. I finally had hard copies of what for so long had been too soft.
Thank you, Marion.
Should I sit down?
Well, we usually take a few minutes to have questions. So does anybody have any questions for Marion?
Come on, ask questions. Yes.
Okay, I'll ask a question. I just became a poet last year. And, you know, I mean, I've been writing poetry all my life, but I just decided
Identified as a
call
poet?
myself a poet.
Right.
So, any advice that you have
Oh my
on what
God.
the
I do have
heck
some
I'm
advice.
supposed to do with all this stuff I'm writing?
All right, well, first, write when you have something to say. If you don't have anything to say, don't worry, we were just talking about this. Don't worry about what they call writers, what do they call it?
Writer's block.
I don't have that yet.
And the other thing, I bet, that's true, you don't.
It's just-
But the other thing, if you, but when you, or maybe you already have reached the stage of sending out, you know, well, my poem was, I expect the Spanish Inquisition, so I'm saying, expect rejection. I get as many as I ever got. I probably get more acceptance than
Where do
I
you
did.
find, I mean, I don't even know. where-
Oh, but anyway, what I'm saying is expect rejections, because all it seems to be is whether that particular editor likes that particular poem, or relates to that particular poem, you know, so.
Well, I've written fiction and gotten rejected, that's,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
But
How do you find?
Okay, so how do you find?
I mean,
Okay, well, two things I do, and I guess a lot of us do this. We subscribe to a magazine called Poets and Writers. You can look it up online. They come from New York. I think they put out 7 issues a year. They're not, I don't think they're as good as they used to be. Now they concentrate, the writers they feature are mostly the ones who don't need to be featured, the poets and writers and features in the New York Times and stuff. So they kind of repeat what, you know, the big media is doing. But they used to concentrate more on small, is that impression correct as far as anyone who's read that? But anyway, but they have a calls for materials section towards the back. And they have a section for books and chapbooks, small books, and so on. And there's all kinds of, calls for materials. They should pay at least in copies. Most of them don't pay in money, especially if it's for poetry, but.
What about paying on your copyrights?
Oh, I don't worry about copyright.
You usually give up,
But-
it's
yes,
usually, most publications want first North American
Well,
publishing rights.
whatever.
But then, once they've published, you
Yeah, you
can usually
basically get all your
republish
rights.
any poem if somebody wants a published poem, but you will have to.
And you should credit.
You would then credit the place that it first appeared. So like you never, you would, I've never heard of a magazine where like you couldn't republish your poem. It becomes more of an issue of whether or not you can find a place that wants a poem that's already been published. But even that's not impossible.
You own it.
Because I was thinking
And
of
also,
starting like a poetry blog and just like.
oh, yeah.
I mean-
Well, but it does count as publication.
Yeah,
It's not-
does?
that does count as
Thank
publication.
you.
So if they don't
I
want
mean,
it published.
I'm acting like people are gonna wanna steal my poetry left and right.
No,
But,
that won't
you know, like I
I mean,
know
not very
from.
likely. And
yeah,
if they
'cause
do, so
I used
what?
to do other kinds of writing that you have to watch out for that. so.
But I wanted to
Yeah.
say that another thing is that, another thing is that if you're not there yet, but someday you might be, if you've published a poem or 2 poems or whatever in various individual journals, and then you get a book accepted, and probably the poems that you've published in journals will be, in the book, so you credit that, you say thank you for various ways, acknowledge
not even.
the places where, so that's good for you, because you look good, you've been published places,
Yeah.
and they're happy to be mentioned. So there's that. But the other thing is, the other place that I do, maybe even more than poets and writers, because that only comes out a certain number of times a year, and I get it in the postal mail and so on. But there's a site or listserv that I'm, a member of a listserv, I guess. It's called CROPS. Let's see if I remember. It's an acronym from, I don't remember what. CRWR. OPPS, yeah. And I don't remember, I think what you do is, well, if you look them up,
If you see me at the end, I know
Oh,
I
you
have
have it with
emails
you.
on my phone from them.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Right, so you send a blank email to them, is what you do.
Oh, okay.
And then they'll send you something back, you're supposed to confirm somewhere, go through,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. But it's very easy to go along. And then she's a one-woman operation. She's a poet, she's a good poet, published poet, and so on. And she, Allison somebody, and she sends, except when she's on hiatus, takes a week hiatus every once in a while. Pretty much every day, she'll send about 8 or so. She'll put at least 8 or so items. A lot of them are contests. I mean, this is a whole big subject that you're asking. And I don't
Yeah.
enter contests unless, I don't enter contests in general, but in particularly if you have to pay to enter.
I tried to enter a contest, and I'm like, I realized, like, after I'd sent the poem, that it was a scam, that just to get me to buy their book.
Yeah, well, a lot of them are, but a lot of them aren't.
And
A lot of
like,
contests are perfectly fine. I'm just not a contest person, and I usually don't send to publishers if they ask for a submission fee, a reading fee. I almost never do that. I mean, even, for a book, there are presses that don't ask for a reading fee, and those are the ones that I send to. If they ask for $10, and I really think that there's a chance that my book has a chance, then I'll do it other than that. So that's, so I have, everybody has their MOs, modus with operandi.
Awesome. I haven't even
And I have mine,
typed the poem yet. I actually,
Okay.
that
So-
poem that you read about putting in another brain,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah, I was actually thinking in letters that day, not every day, not all the time. Other questions? What questions about my poem?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's a good question, too. Yes, Mike.
I
More
get the
questions for
impression
me?
that you don't run out of ideas, you run out of time more than ideas. So how do you budget your time
I
to
don't run out
to
of
figure out
time.
when you're gonna write? I mean, you
I
have to have
write-
some
When I
kind of
think of
discipline.
something, I write it down. There's always a minute to
No, that's it.
write it down. I don't feel, I don't need to get up at a particular time in the morning to write. I do write I do a lot, I commute to teaching, I take buses and trains, three of them each way. And I use that time to aggregate papers and if I have an idea for writing, to write, And today I was timing the reading. And when I was timing the reading, I wrote that poem that I told you, my latest poem. So, so I don't worry about running out of time. But I guess most people do, right? Worry about finding time to write. I used to write in the middle of the night when I was a caregiver, and my husband would wake me up many, many times at night, towards the end, before I insisted he go to the nursing home. I knew I'd die if I didn't sleep. But I would write, or not just then, but other times too, write in the middle of the night. Now I do it only if I wake up with ideas, that I want to write down, or a great dream. But I don't really worry about, like I said, worry about having writer's block, because I've written enough, and I feel like I've expressed a lot of what I want to say about a lot of topics, So, so if I don't have anything to say, then I don't need to write, Yes.
Can you talk about what you love about math? Like,
Those
is
little
it possible
squiggles.
that some,
Yeah, it's poignant to me. And that's what this, I talk more about that in this book, maybe other poems too, other, sources. one thing I say when people ask is that it's like science fiction. Math poetry is something like science fiction. People can be passionate about science fiction and not be passionate about science. So it's similar to that, and math is math itself is a metaphor for things, and certain what we call mathematical objects, things that occur in math. Those things I listed, derivatives and what did I say, difference quotients and stuff, can be metaphors. That's not. I don't think that's quite what I want. But that's good enough. Metaphors for some other idea, or the other way around. So when I'm really in the throes of doing math, it doesn't happen, all the time. I mean, I could cry. I mean, I don't know if I ever had, but it's that emotional. So I don't think I'm answering your question.
What's the first word you used, poignant?
Poignant.
Yeah?
I find it poignant. Well, math, doing math is like doing anything else that you're passionate about and that you feel you really want to do. You want a problem you want to solve, whether it's a math problem or not. It's a struggle. It's like just the struggle with a capital S. So that's one thing that's poignant about it, I think. But the math itself, to me, is often poignant. Also, not only things I've already mentioned. So I don't know, maybe that begins to answer your question. You really want to know. Here's that book. Yes?
What type of math do you work with?
Mostly abstract, and I don't do a lot of math research, but I do some. And I'm not a problem solver. So I'll work on a problem and not get enough places with it to publish it. Right now, my favorite math thing, the associative arithmetic thing that I mentioned in one of the poems, is being considered by a math journal. And this idea that I'm doing goes back to my teenage years, like age 15. The more sophisticated stuff doesn't go back to age 15, or maybe I shouldn't say that. But the whole thing put together, the whole idea is a kind of a lifelong thing, so it will mean something to me if it gets published, especially in that journal, because people will read it.
Is that maybe a sociopath, like statistics?
No, it's not. What do you mean is that? No, arithmetic is arithmetic, meaning, adding, subtracting, and so on and so forth. And what gets me about arithmetic is the idea of that multiplication is repeated addition. In math, we call it iteration. That multiplication is iterated addition. And then also, they're both commutative and they're both associative. X plus y equals y plus x, and A times B equals B times A. And there's something called an associative property, which some of you might know about, but they're short, simple properties, and I'm interested in that kind of thing. So I actually want to know what other types of system. If we don't start with addition, if we start with something else, and then iterate that and call that generalized multiplication. I know I call it something else in the paper. Turns out that's rather difficult, and it leads to some interesting ideas. At least so thought this this referee and that editor. So I haven't heard definitely yes or no, but I'll send it someplace else if they say no. But so I forget how the question that I tell you no always. But yeah, so I said the page filling up with cute little integers. Yeah, I like integers. There's fractions and there's irrational numbers that can't be expressed as fractions. But yeah. Math speaks to me in a way and physics doesn't speak to me in that way. Not quite, some aspects of physics might. But physics doesn't, chemistry does, and other sciences don't, for me. Anyone? Anything else?
Marion, who takes your math and your
My course.
Yeah. Are they math students? Are they lit students?
We have both.
So
it depends. Right now we have 2 or 3, I don't remember, math majors. Sometimes we'll have no math majors in the course. And I usually get about 5 or 6, either lit majors or writing majors. Yeah, people who are passionate about writing. And some of these people have started to send their work in, and maybe they've been published. in the college journal or maybe some other journal, but, and then there are people who want to be there, for one thing. It's, it's an elective. But also people who need, well, it satisfies a math requirement and writing requirement, and some others that I don't even know about. You only talk a lot about social justice, but I talk about that if I get the chance anyway. So there's students who want to be there, and they're good students. Most of them get A's in the course. Even if they don't start out, they get getting an A. They get the gist of it, and they start sharing up the kazoo, and writing well. I do believe that if you have people who have something to say, usually, automatically will write well, including the grammar, including the sentence structure. I've seen extreme differences between the same student writing about something she's interested in, getting an A+, an A or an A+, and then writing about something that she just somehow picked the topic to write about, and she's not interested in it, and she's got a C or something, and I'll tell her that, and then she'll, from now on, write about something you really want to write about, and I give them that chance, to do that. So yeah, but we've had biology majors, and we have psychology majors, and we have business majors. I don't know, some other majors, but they're usually people who are thinking about inner life. It turns out that a lot of them think a lot about inner lives. They're usually, like, eventually we talk about childhood memories and dreams, and there are people for whom their dreams are precious, and their memories are precious. And my earliest memory happened when I was 17 months old, somehow. I think that's when it was. But I wasn't 2 yet, And I have some students who remember before that. So there are people who have also paid, like in that last poem that I read, they paid attention to their inner lives. Doesn't mean everyone, or some more than others, But they're, like I say, they might take the course because it satisfies the math requirement, or writing requirement, or social justice requirement. But there are other courses that also do that. Well, this course is very popular. It's the only course I'm teaching, and it's the only course I want to teach right now. Fun courses, courses that use the best of me, So does that answer your question? Yeah, and then some, right? Yes.
Sometimes when I walk along in the woods along the creek, some days, like in the spring and the fall, I'll see the water trickle over little waterfall, some rocks, and I don't know why, I'll count how many rocks it's going over some days, and other days.
Counting.
It won't be as important. It'll just be, it'll like blend, you know what I'm saying? It won't, and then when I listen to music, especially RTI jazz, I'll hear a certain instrument, and I can hear different notes coming back. I might count them, and other days I'll just hear like a chord pattern. And I'm wondering, in your own mind, when you're out in the woods and you're listening to music.
I'm never out in the woods.
Okay.
But if I were,
Yeah.
actually this was one thrift store that sort of has a very woodsy area.
Oh, cool.
A little bit, for about not even a block. And I can see, well, I wouldn't get, like I say, I'm not going to count leaves, because the older arithmetician counted leaves in my home. But I can see myself counting interesting things. Like, I'm going to remember that, what you just said. I think that's interesting. And one of the things that we get to talk about, well, that's why I was able to write that poem, are things that we count. We read the story of an older arithmetician and how she counts leaves on trees and so on. And so I asked the students, are there things that you count? The most, as I say, the class favorite is usually stairs. They count as they're going upstairs.
I was thinking people staring at you.
Well, maybe that too. But we've had some interesting things that people count. Probably like that was interesting what you just said. I wish other people thinking of things.
I thought in music, I played music for a long time, but I hardly learned to read music. And it amazes me that somebody could write a symphony and write it on paper. So,
Not me.
People
It drives people to what?
To be
Continue
scared of
to-
it?
Oh, well, to be scared of it. I guess competitiveness is a big thing in our world. That's one of the things that I don't like, you know? But I never had to worry about feeling competitive because I really was on the top for math in my class, boys and girls. And, you know, so if I had to worry about ego and stuff, I didn't, and my grades were secure and stuff. And some people who are smart, you know, are not school smart.
Yeah.
You know, so then that's a struggle for them, you know, then they have to come to their own in different ways, but I was school smart, mostly because my school was smart, you know, or maybe not mostly, but, you know, certainly partially, because my schools were understanding and good, you know. So, but anybody who wishes they loved math, will just, you know, what I would do is plop myself down in the bookstore when I was a teenager, you know, and just sit down and in those days it was Brentano's, I think. And I'd sit on the floor with the math books and I'd, you know, just read math books. You know, all kinds of things I hadn't learned in school were in there, and all kinds of things, having my own ideas and so on.
Just reading them.
So what I'm saying is, so, yeah, well, I can talk to you more private, give you
No,
some
that's
ideas.
okay.
Because there are some very interesting, and riddles. That's what I give my students riddles to solve, because a lot of people love riddles and don't love math, you know. So I say to them, because most of them do like doing the riddles that I give them. And I pick, of course, math-like riddles. And I say to them, the way you feel writing, you know, working on this riddle is pretty much the way I feel working on a math research problem. So just, you know, just that. So it's good to start with riddles, you know. So I don't want to, I know you guys want to, you know, some of you are anxious to start the open reading, but I mean, also loving the questions. So,
Well, thank you very much, Mary.
and these books are for sale.